All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Shells and Shadows podcast. Today, I'm here with someone who I've known for a while, and we've become friends through college. And now I have the privilege of sitting down with him and talking about some of the projects we've both been working on and how we're using the knowledge that we've soaked in to help other people live their best lives. So I'm today here with Bradley Bannr. He's a biological systems coach. Welcome, Bradley.
Thank you.
I want to talk about something new that you've been working on, Bannr Systems. And I know you recently graduated college. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about why you started Bannr Systems? Who is it for? Who are you trying to help here?
Yeah, so I started Bannr Systems because, one, I graduated college a little early and I didn't want to leave Boulder. I wanted to do something for myself, start something up, and really be able to live in the moment. And I spent a lot of time in college. I studied neuroscience and I became a marathoner. I spent a lot of time in college thinking about the human body and what it actually means to live with your body, not through it. And it kind of built out these philosophical pillars that I pretty much created and worked with in my life. And I began teaching and kind of showing people the way that I figured things out. And I saw that people got a lot out of it. And I said, I can really do something with this. I can really help a lot of people. And if I'm thinking of who it's for, right, it's for the college student. It's for the 18 to 22-year-old who's trying to figure out how to get the most out of their mind and body. There's only 24 hours in the day. How do you raise your floor and raise your ceiling at the same time throughout that day? So that's what it's for.
Yeah, man, I like what you said, living with your body, not through your body, right? Like finding ways in your life, in your routine to create like partnership with this vessel that we've been given to interact with the world instead of literally just moving through life unconsciously. I think with health, especially, I know you're in the realm of biology, but also neuroscience, but health, we sometimes wait for the warning sign to come on our dashboard to take health seriously, where that might be reducing our quality of life. So it seems like you're taking a very proactive approach to health, but I know you also incorporate a lot of neuroscience into that. Tell us a little bit about your neuroscience background. I know you're very passionate about that.
So before college, I was really interested in human behavior. And I said, I want to study human behavior, but I still like science and I want to challenge myself. So I said, you know what, screw it. Let me study neuroscience. I didn't know what it meant. I got to college and it took 2 years until I even reached the neuroscience pathway. It was all biology and chemistry, which I was not expecting, but I stuck with it. And once I graduated, I realized, man, neuroscience isn't just it was the perfect way for me to interact, to combine my biology, chemistry with the psychology and human behavior, where I could actually connect the dots now of human behavior is not just something people do. It's something that's caused by something else. It's a cause and effect a lot of the times. And that's what I really fell in love with, is understanding what can you do for your body, for your mind, to help you behave in a way that you want to behave. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. As someone who studied psychology, I didn't get a ton into neuroscience. I had to take a few classes that were related, but I know that there's such a huge impact the mind has on the body. A lot of times, like you look at illness, a lot of it stems from the mind and beliefs we have and the ways that we're operating cognitively, where that has a ripple effect that reaches to the whole body. So when we shift something in our mindset, often we see that our body responds, which is so fascinating. And there's so much more like research coming out on the power of belief and the ways that it influences our reality and our environment. So I know you're not a coach, like a life coach, at least. What did you see the difference between life coach and biological systems coach? Why did you make that distinction? Because life coach is very easy to slap a label on yourself and call yourself that, but you told me that that's not who you are.
Right. I'm not a life coach, The things that I focus on are very different from the things a life coach will focus on, right? For me, it's just about specificity, It's specifying that a life coach And life coaches are incredible, but they're going to take your whole life and they're going to tell you what's good, what's bad, what's not good, what's not bad. And what I'm doing is I'm going a little deeper than that. We're going to look at your morning routine. We're going to say, all right, why are you feeling really bad at 10 a.m. every morning? Why do you think you're a night owl? Is it because you're not hydrated after you wake up? Is it because you're not getting sunlight soon enough? It's the simple biological changes you can make that resonate well with the human body that have a really, really vast and large impact on the human mind. Getting somebody out of bed who wakes up at 6 a.m. instead of immediately putting down a cup of coffee, getting them with 8 to 10 ounces of water with maybe a little bit of salt, maybe some electrolytes. The difference that makes immediately, just like that, is unbelievable. Getting somebody to step outside, restart that clock, that circadian rhythm within your mind. That's what I do. So I'm not necessarily saying you need to follow this direction, this path. It's, your path. This is about giving you the resources to become more human, more of yourself, so you can figure out what you truly want to do and how you can do it.
Yeah, man. I think that's the difference between a good coach or therapist and one that tries to tell you what's right or wrong. When you came into the room today, you told me that you're so curious to see how this conversation goes and what it's like. I think curiosity is key here. If you can evoke a sense of curiosity in the person you're working with, you let them find the answers, right? Their body has the wisdom. Their mind has the wisdom of what they need if they can tap into it. It's not your job to tell them, okay, here's what you should be doing. Although there are certain practices, I'm sure, that if someone's getting 4 hours of sleep and going to bed at 4 a.m. and not drinking water, you can tell them what to do. But beyond that, it's being able to bring out the answers within someone through that curiosity.
Yes, humans, we're capable of so much more than we think we are. So it's just about helping them bring it out of themselves.
Something else you said that I love talking about on the show and just in general in my life, like circadian rhythm, finding the rhythm that is like innate to the being, because we do live in a world that is so far detached from what humans, like human origin, I guess, where this room has straight lined walls. It's kind of a box. There's no natural sunlight. If I were to stay in here all day, which I sometimes do, it wouldn't be good for the organism, right? We're meant to be outdoors. We're meant to be in touch with the rhythms of nature and all that surrounds us, kind of in a harmony. And so when we cut ourselves off from that harmony, you feel it. It's like, the way I think about it, like an aspen grove. It's not just a singular aspen tree isn't an organism on itself that stands alone. It's connected to a larger network underground of roots and systems, and it all feeds off of information and nutrients that is shared between each tree within this larger system. And so when we cut ourselves off from that system, we're going to feel it. That's suffering, right? That's a biological phenomena.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. I could imagine even on my days where I end up in my home office, right, in my bedroom at my desk for hours at a time, if I have the blinds closed by 3 p.m., I'm really feeling the burnout. I'm feeling it because I don't have that energy that's coming from the outside, whether you want to take it in a literal or physical sense or not. It's worth something.
When you're coaching someone, at least with like physical fitness and whatnot, do you incorporate anything outdoors within your program?
Well, for me, it's about helping them find what they appreciate more so. I specialize in the endurance coaching. I'm not a world-class marathoner. I'm not a world-class athlete, but I understand the science and the fitness in a way where I can help anybody, regardless of if they've been running for 10 years or if they've just started running. And I do like to tell people run outside. It feels better. I try to push them in that direction. There's something different about taking those steps and finding that runner's high outside versus sitting on a treadmill, staring in a mirror for, however long on end. It's the ability to go places can do a lot for your mind. And that's kind of what I preach. But again, it's just letting people find what works best for them, But I would much rather somebody run outside than inside, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I appreciated about the Boulderthon, I did the half marathon and you've done it before, is that Boulder's the best place to run. So I did all of my training kind of on off of Canyon, going through along the creek, and then getting to run through just the hillsides of Boulder. It gave me so much more energy and was so much more exhilarating, sun on my face, than any of the training that I did inside, like basement treadmill. It's like, what is this? I feel like a hamster on a wheel right now.
Right. How lucky are we to be able to be in such a beautiful place and to be able to go outdoors, and I was talking to somebody yesterday and they have a February marathon coming up and they said, yeah, it's just really cold outside. I go, I know, but how lucky are you to be able to run outside straight at the Flatirons and see them covered in snow and get to watch it, get to watch it happen.
Yeah.
And we had a good little moment about that one, like just how lucky we are, I graduated there senior in college, and that mutual understanding that our time in this special place is running out and that we just get to experience it one last time. It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I also feel a lot of gratitude for Boulder and everything that it brings. I made the decision not to leave after
Right.
graduating, and I'm very happy I did, because I get to just keep soaking in more of just the great environment I'm surrounded by. And dude, I don't know if I could leave my creek. I love the Boulder Creek. It's my happy spot. And also like connecting to like the rhythms around me, something about being in flowing water at all times of the year, right? Going through the seasons, like I almost talk about it like it's a relationship with this place by the Boulder Creek, because I feel like when you connect to nature, I don't know, it's an emotional experience. It's not just a physical thing. You feel the wonder, you feel the awe. I've been trying to get you to come with me, man. We got to make it happen.
I know, I've got to make it happen.
We will. So for those who don't know, Bradley's been putting out blog posts every Monday. It's been a very consistent thing for you and that you've committed to. And so what inspired you to take writing that you've done and you've probably done in the past more for yourself and share it with other people?
Well, it started with the idea that I really felt like I was being boxed in by the world around me. I had no form of creative expression. I was a neuroscience student where everything is, black and white, straight to the point. There's no really room for discussion. When you're getting your undergraduate degree in neuroscience, they're teaching you things and you learn them. Mm-hmm. There's no questioning it because these are things that are proved to be true. I worked in a research lab where I got a little bit of that, where I could kind of work outside the box, but it wasn't fulfilling enough for me. And I was on the phone with a good friend and he told me, he's like, dude, just hop in front of a camera and talk at the camera. And I was really uncomfortable by that. So I found a happy medium and I started writing on Substack. And I said, you know what? From this moment, I'm going to commit to writing once per week for however long I can. The original goal was 10 straight weeks. I hit that mark and I immediately wrote a new schedule of the next 10. And these were all things where I had so much to give already. These are things that I'd had conversation after conversation about with people. And I said, why limit the reach of this? Why limit the scope? Who knows if it'll go viral or if people even read it. But the fact that it's out there and somebody can means a lot more to me than the fact that the only people that could hear what I had to say were the people around me and the people who asked. So, yeah, that's why I started.
Right. And I'm sure the people around you were also very happy to hear that you were doing this, because I'm sure they've benefited immensely from the things you've shared with them. Like, I just think of like your roommates. I think of like, I know you've been training at least like one of your roommates, and like I've seen his life change, and I've seen other people have been like super positively impacted by the wisdom that you've shared and just what you've learned in this short life that you've had. Right. One thing that I tell new clients or just people that I have on the podcast is that it's not about going viral per se. There's two pieces to it. One is you're building a community. You'd rather have 100 loyal followers who really engage with your writing and your work and appreciate it and soak it in, than 1,000 people that follow you but don't engage. It's not a community. It seems like that's what you're building is people who can engage with it in a meaningful way.
Yeah, it's really nice. My favorite thing in the world is when people bring it up to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, I read what you wrote. Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
I have a question. I have a counter argument. Those are my favorite
Cool.
conversations ever. You know, people who are willing to engage in those hard conversations to challenge what I put out there, because look, it all comes back to the same idea that we're just human and we're all figuring it out for ourselves. And a lot of my philosophy is pretty intense and strict on myself, but it also stems from this idea that that's what I know I need. That's what works for me. And when I work with clients, I tell them, hey, it's not about being me. It's not about having the same morning routine as me, the same nighttime wind down routine as me. It's about finding the routine that works for you. But to get to that point, we have to get your biology working with you.
Right.
Because without your biology, you're not you.
Right. You're not preaching a list of things that people should do that will make their life better. You're giving them a system that they can use to explore what is the right way for them to go about life. It's a personal experience.
Exactly.
The other thing that I also tell people when starting a podcast, or people that come on mine, is that, again, it's not about going viral per se. And this is a Jewish idea as well, that if you change one person's life, it's as if you've changed the world in its entirety. Mm-hmm. And it's very real when you start to feel those people that are coming back to you and saying, wow, you know what, Bradley, this really impacted my routine, my life, my quality of life. And I've heard that too with the podcast. Right? Like, I'm not blowing up online at this point, like hopefully one day, right? But just hearing people who come up to me and say, hey man, that was really special. Thank you for putting that out there. It makes it worth everything. And it also makes every moment that I've questioned my worth to get behind a mic and say what I'm saying. Like, oh, who really wants to listen, right? That imposter syndrome, it's just blown it away entirely. It just dissolves when that one person can connect and can express that to you, that, hey, what you put out in the world really impacted my life. I'm sure you felt that too.
Yeah, in the exact same way. It was my first piece. And I promised myself before I did all of these Substacks is nobody's going to see this before I put them out. I'm not going to ask somebody for help on how to write it, how it sounds. Is the tone right? Is the tone good? No, this is just coming from me. Mm-hmm. And after I released that first Substack in late Monday in October, and the next day I get a text about it saying, hey, I really like this. This is awesome. It made it all worth it. It was like that every bit of anxiety I had about putting myself out there in a more personal note, it was gone.
Yeah. Dude, and now you're getting behind the mic. Let's go.
Yeah, this is a big step for me. This is a big step for me.
Let's just say it's the first of many videos that you'll be offering to people.
Hopefully.
No, and I'm here for it. I mean, we've talked about this, but I'd love to just collaborate in some sort of way to, you've got the writing piece, I've got the video piece. Mm-hmm. And I love, and it's very refreshing to be around people in general who are in the world of college, or people I went to college with, that are thinking ahead. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking about bigger purpose. We've discussed how it's been a little frustrating at times, because you have to really look for it in a college environment. And when you find the right people, when you find the people that you can have dialogues like this with, it's so refreshing, so rewarding. But it's definitely, for me at least, it's been a search, but definitely something that I'm glad I've done. Yeah, man. I want to now go to a different kind of segment of the show today, because you've done all of this writing. We've pulled some quotes from different posts you put out. I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to just unpack them with you. Put down a question or two about each one. So, sound good?
Yeah, let's jump into it.
All right. So, the first one is, Discipline isn't supposed to make your life smaller. Mature discipline is when effort stops being punishment and becomes support. So at what point for you did you feel this shift in discipline where it wasn't something that was hindering you, but something that was actually helping you move forward?
It took a while. When you start to live a life of discipline, at the very beginning, it can feel entrapping. It can feel like something where I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't go here, I can't go there. But at a certain point, it turns into, I now have time for this, I now have time for that. I can now eat this, I can now eat that. It opens up your mind. It closes your mind first when you're taking things away. But when I wrote a piece last night, and pretty much what I was saying is, when I work, I like to have nothing on my desk. And some people would call that obsessive, and I'm trying to think of the right word for it, when it's pretty much stopping you from, what's the word I'm thinking of right now? Something
Stopping you from what?
like when you take things away instead of
Restrictive?
Yeah, very restrictive.
Yeah.
Some people would say that it's very restrictive to take everything off my desk, but I think the freedom it offers me is unbelievable, because it means I can put anything back on my desk. But now I can be choosy and picky. I can really put the things there that matter. And when they don't matter anymore, I can take them away.
Right. Yeah. You're creating a blank canvas for yourself to then create on your own as like the artist and the architect of your life.
Right. And sometimes, discipline might start as restricting yourself because you need a clean slate. Sometimes you've made your dinner plate so messy that you can't fit anything else on it, even with the scraps that are there. So you get a new plate.
Yeah. A full cup doesn't have room for anything to go in it, man. Like we have to empty our cup. We have to become I guess just like an empty vessel at times, just to really like nullify this ego that wants to be full all the time. And in that empty space, once we've cleansed the things that we often haven't, we don't always choose what we've put on our plate in the past. So getting to restructure what goes into our body, what goes into our mind, into our routine, in a way that we may have never done because we haven't thought to do so, because we've been running on like an automatic way of living. That can be a huge game changer for people.
Right. Once you start to live a life of discipline, it opens up a life of intention, where you can really have intention about what you fill your life with.
Yeah. I know that when I first started really structuring my life in like a disciplined way, I was around 17 years old, and I was taking a very like gym bro, like what's his name? Like David Goggins, like mindset to it. And it didn't really work over a long period of time. It wasn't sustainable, because the second I got to college, it all kind of faded away, because it wasn't a framework. It wasn't like a way of living that could be adapted to any environment. And so when I came to college, I realized that having discipline also means having flexibility. It's weird, because you have to be rigid on certain things. Like, this is my line, I'm not going to cross it. But at the same time, you have to know where that line is moving and when. Otherwise, you're going to be a slave to you are going to be undisciplined when it comes to your own flexibility in life. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a paradox.
It totally is. But once you learn how to live with it,
Yeah.
It opens you up so much to the world, which is really, really interesting to me. It takes practice, but everyone can get there.
Yeah. What was a moment where you felt so, I guess, lost and out of control in your routine and in your mind and your body, that forced you into just a new mindset and forced you to kind of wipe your desk clean and start over? What was a defining moment for you in this journey towards discipline?
So it starts in late middle school, early high school for me. I was an athlete. I was a basketball player. And it was, people like to joke, ball is life. Ball was my life. It was all I did every day. I would wake up at 5, I'd work out, I'd go to school, I'd work out during lunch, I'd go home after school for 20 minutes, go back to the gym, work out, and then I'd play pickup till 9 p.m. Basketball was my life. It was all that I worked at. It was all that I truly cared about. When I got to college, I my first few weeks I was playing pickup basketball. I was like, I was still a basketball player in my mind. And it took me a little bit to then realize, I'm more than the game. And then once that shift happened in my mind, I turned into a student at University of Colorado Boulder that had different activities I was doing. I was joining a fraternity. I was making friends, and I lost myself a little bit. I was very, very disciplined in high school in the way I trained and treated my body. And when I got to college that first semester, I lost that. It was the worst academic semester I had all of college. And I had a lot of fun. I will not take that away from the semester, but my second semester, I learned how to adapt that discipline and mindset of self-improvement and making sure I get the things that I know are important to be done. At the same time, when I learned how to adapt that mindset to college, that's when it started to shift for me. And then that's when the academic shift happened. And about mid-sophomore year comes up, and I gained a little weight, and I wasn't too happy with my body composition and the way things were moving for me. And I started running. And at that point, that was when I really found the discipline for it. The clean slate, that was the point where I was able to start adding things to my plate, right? Where I had this clean slate of, I'm very disciplined with my school. I'm getting my things done. I have all of this time for everything else. Now, what do I care about? I care about getting myself back in shape. I care about spending time with my friends, treating my body right. And from there, it just kept evolving into, my junior year, I ran my first marathon. My senior year, now, I'm graduated from college. I ran another marathon. I'm in the best shape of my life. I worked in a research lab for 2.5 years where I was doing all of this at once. But the clean slate allowed me to, because I still had the time to do everything else that mattered to me. So that was kind of my journey, and how it evolved over time is adapting the discipline to different aspects of my life.
Yeah. I hear a lot of parallels in that, like, shift to going to college. Like, I shared a little bit about how I just kind of broke me open, and then I could pick up the pieces and rebuild in a new way, actually. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it means to grow and grow up and go from being a boy to being a man. Like, there's a shattering that occurs, right? There's a moment where you realize that you can't go back to the way that life used to be. And this is kind of what I talk about, and what the hero's journey talks about. If you're familiar with Joseph Campbell's work, it's the idea that in any like hero story, which is a theme that shows up in everyone's life in their own journey, there comes a point where you're called to change. It's there, but you won't accept the call because you're comfortable in the way that life is. But then something happens to where you can't go back to the life that you used to live. You're forced to go on this journey to meet the mentors, to have these different trials and tribulations, then integrate that into who you are and return home. And when you return home, you're a different person. So it sounds like for you, that might have been a moment where you couldn't look back. You had to keep moving forward.
Exactly. And I love that. That was a perfect way of describing it, connecting the dots.
Yeah, definitely look into it, because the hero's journey, it shows up in more ways than we think. Every bit of cinema, fairy tales, storytelling, all of the people that we look to in our world that have these incredible life stories, it's following the hero's journey. There's different themes and characters and whatnot that come up along the way, and it's consistent across humankind. That's why the framework that you're building, although it's very, it provides like guidelines in a way, and just principles to follow. It's consistent across humankind, but it also leaves room for everyone's individual experience.
It's exactly, and I'm pulling something up here, on my website, I have a list of my philosophies, that my 10 pillars. When I started this, I said, what are 10 things that I think truly matters, right? And I'm going to read a couple of them.
Yeah, go for it.
Because they leave room, Number one, peace has physics, right? Like, it's not telling people this is how to find peace. It's that it works within you, right? If I keep going, I skip a couple, whatever. I love this one. Identity is repetition. It's not about this is how you find yourself. It's about doing the things that you care about will help you find yourself. So those are just two quick examples, but I loved what you just said.
Dude, I love those. Can you share like a few more?
Yeah.
Love to hear them.
All right, I'll just finish them out.
All right, go for it.
Calm requires discipline. To find the state of calm, it requires the state of discipline, right?
It's every meditation practice, right?
Mm-hmm. Failure is the data you need. If you're not failing, then have you really tried before? Momentum beats motivation. Optimize like a scientist. This is one of my favorites, is treat yourself like an experiment, right? Test, track, refine over and over again until you have it, until you're you. Live as a modern athlete. This is one of my favorite things to tell people, because they think I'm not an athlete. I'm not in the NBA, MLB, NFL, whatever. But in my mind, an athlete today is not just someone who trains. It's someone who lives with intention, right? They sleep, they eat, they have all this stress on their plate. They have to figure out what to do with it, right? They live with structure. They take care of themselves. That's a modern athlete. And all of us can do that without the sports part,
Definitely.
And then the last one, discipline becomes identity. It's early discipline is force, but mature discipline is alignment. It's the quiet feeling of doing exactly what your life demands, exactly what the inside of you is telling you that you crave more of, that you want to live like. So those are just a couple. I guess those are just figuring it out, finishing it out.
Yeah. There's a few that like stuck with me. The second one, was it something about, it was about identity as well. I just want to make sure I get it right.
Let's see. Let's remember which one that was. Identity is repetition. Is that
okay? One? Yes. Identity is repetition. So so just like getting the gears turning here reminds me of just like the concept of we are sponges as human beings. We have this fixed idea that our minds and our bodies and our being is confined to the self, when in reality, we're constantly taking in information from other people. You and I sitting in this room right now, we are interacting on a deeper level than just Yehuda and Bradley having a conversation. We're influencing each other, and the lines are blurred because we're creating this joint shared conversation. And so the things you spend your time doing, the people you spend your time with, the information that you're taking in, it becomes part of who you are in a way. You're receptive to so many of those things. So it in a way, it becomes your identity. So if your identity is being built by all these positive habits, those things become who you are, because the sense of self is far more fluid than we like to think it is.
Right. Yeah. Like you are not what you intend to be, but you are what you repeat,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. And the next one that I also love is failure being a source of data.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the biggest teacher in a young man's life, especially like a young single man, is rejection. Right? Like go out and get rejected, see how it feels. You feel like embarrassed, right? You feel that all coming up, but it's good. It's information for you. And it becomes less daunting to go put yourself out there in ways afterwards. That's one kind of failure. There's other forms of it, but then you learn so much from that experience. You learn more from an experience of awful rejection by a girl, let's say, than if you were to probably get her number, send her a text, and then just never see her again. Like that outright rejection, you'll feel it. It'll flood your body. You'd be like, whoa, what is this sensation? And we push it away because it's uncomfortable, but it can be curious, right? Curiosity. Ooh, what's here?
Yeah. And on a totally different note with failure, one of the core philosophies that I've embodied, it's something a good friend of mine's father told me before my first marathon. About 2 weeks before, I was asking him about pacing. How should I pace? This is what I've been doing. He goes, crash and burn. You've never done this before. You don't know what you're truly capable of, what that morning adrenaline can bring you, where it can bring you, how you're going to respond to the course. Crash and burn. See what you do, because if you truly love this, if you truly feel like you have something here with running and training for marathons, you're going to do another one. Would you rather cross the finish line having 10% left, or cross the finish line knowing you had nothing left to give?
It's a good question.
And it's something that I preach now is you have no idea what you're capable of. You could wake up that morning and feel like a superhero. So be it, push yourself harder than you've ever pushed before. And of course, there's moments where, you can pace yourself and you can make sure that you get across that finish line. I'm not saying if you've been training at a 10-minute per mile pace, go out at a 6-minute pace and sprint the whole thing. It's if you're aiming for an 8-minute mile, go out at 7:45, 7:50. See if you can cut a couple minutes off. And a funny thing about me, I've still to this day yet to finish a marathon and not be destroyed at the end of it. And I'm totally fine with that. I know that I'm capable of so much more than what I set my goals to be. And that's really comforting to me.
I love it, man. And I don't know where I heard it. There's some like statistic that when we think we're at our limit, we actually have like 80 more percent or 60 more percent to go till we actually have hit our full limit.
Exactly.
And those things that drive that'll take you the rest of the way, a lot of times it won't kick in unless like the threat of death is present. Right? You see all of these stories. I mean, there's a movie about it, but like people that get stranded while on like a climbing expedition and they're left to like find their way back to civilization, and they go days without food, water, and they're just pushing just by the just pure human will to survive. That's 100%. They're going to go until they physically can't go any further. That's not something that we naturally are able to tap into. We don't live in the wild. We're not hunting. We're not being hunted, at least in the primal forest running through with spears sense, right?
Right.
So if we don't put ourselves in situations that allow ourselves to push that threshold, push beyond that threshold and get into that space of survival energy, not from a place of fear, but from a place of like being intentional, like I'm going to push myself. We'll never realize that we have the ability to tap into that unless, of course, we're put in a life-threatening situation, which is not ideal.
Yeah, I mean, the nervous system adapts by breaking and repairing. It's an easy way to look at things. If it doesn't break, it won't grow. So, yeah.
All right, let's dive into another quote.
All right.
Okay, I like this one. Dopamine isn't a happiness chemical. It's the pursuit chemical. Modern life trains us to chase what's easy instead of what's meaningful. So with this, what did you have to remove to make real work that pushes you forward, feel rewarding and feel meaningful?
Well, we live in an age where the tools of capture are beyond anything we've ever seen. You have your phone at your fingertips. They have made it so easy to scroll, and it's rewarding. The quick little easy rewards. And for me, it was about getting rid of that, in the easiest way possible, right? Blocking social media during the day, making sure that the first thing I do when I wake up isn't scroll, but it's to do something for myself. The real pursuit of happiness, not the fake one, not the little mini scroll, not the, I call it the itch. It's like this thing that you feel in your mind that like you need some it's like a stimulation. Yeah, like a quick fix, some stimulation. And for a while, I always thought of the itch as like, it's just a feeling you have. It's like, you give yourself a little scroll. People call it like I'm just getting my scroll in. I've heard people say that before.
It's ridiculous.
It's withdrawal. Yeah. It's totally withdrawal from the quick, easy dopamine hits. Yeah. So it's about kind of freeing yourself from that, letting yourself sit in silence, letting yourself, drive without listening to music. It's hard now in modern day. It's hard to do things without stimulation because we've been trained to want it over and over again.
Yeah, and we're not as bored as we used to be before we had the cell phone in our pockets. Even so, you and I are growing up in an age where we have cell phones, but I'd say the first half of our lives we didn't, and I'm thankful that we didn't. If we were born 10 years later, I feel like it would have impacted us.
I feel really bad for people growing up right now.
Yeah,
who are really young, people who are growing up in this age where not only do they have TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, but they have AI where they can there is literally endless amounts of information and stimulation that is coming in every single day. And you hear it, they call them iPad kids, and it's a real thing. And I think it's something that people joke about a little bit too much, because these are the people, we're letting people grow up in this age, and they're going to be the ones controlling and running society at some point. What's that going to lead to?
Dude, I have no idea. But it is a problem, and there's a solution to it as well. Boredom is incredibly powerful, because what we see as bored is actually like the fading away of noise and letting new ideas and new realizations and reflections and just experience arise from boredom, from this like empty place. And getting to that state of emptiness is very difficult, because there's always something to put on. There's always something else to put on our desk, right? As you would say.
Exactly.
So what is a way that you found a new itch to scratch? What is something else that you've now become not dependent on, but something that you've started craving and trained yourself to crave that is actually positive, moving yourself forward, where if you don't have this thing, you feel a little incomplete, in a good way though?
It's funny. I think my answer is hydration. It took me a long time to really figure out what it meant to be hydrated. For a while, it's, drink a gallon of water. And then it's, make sure you're hitting your sodium. You need some potassium too. You need all these little things. And at a certain point, when I was, I do a lot of training. I pretty much take in 6 grams of sodium per day. That's a lot, 6,000 milligrams. It's a lot of sodium.
Damn.
And I've learned that that's just what my body needs in order to be at 100% of its capacity. And the idea is, I've learned that there's a specific hunger that doesn't come from being hungry. It comes from not being hydrated. There's a specific kind of little mini headache that doesn't come from, there's pollen in the air, or you're just not feeling great, but you're just underhydrated. And even if you're drinking water, there's so much more that goes into it. And I think that's my new itch. That's the thing that keeps me going. I'm ultra aware of the way my mind feels, and I almost take it a little too far. I think everything I feel at this point comes down to hydration at a certain level. Like when I'm not feeling my 100% best, I know I'm not as hydrated as I can be.
Interesting. But you've also learned how to sense those signals in your body.
Right.
It's a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a relationship. Like, it's weird to separate the self and look at like me versus my body, when in reality it's hard. It's not as separate as we think. But for the sake of what I'm going to say, having a relationship with one's body in a way that you would with any other like life partner, where and you're able to inquire like, hey, like, what do you need right now? Like, how can I help you? I think that's the source of what people say, like self-love, is being able to care for one's being, one's body, the vessel that, like, I believe that, God has given us to fulfill a certain mission with, as if you would care for someone else, tend to their needs, even like a house plant or a pet, where there's something that is dependent on you, and you have the responsibility of taking care of it. And that's a big source of love.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I also like what you said when you talk about the itch, in just something that I found and also I've heard, is when you're talking about addiction, the solution to addiction isn't to quit doing what you're doing. It's to replace that craving for this negative thing with a craving for a positive thing. We are driven as human beings, whether we're driven towards alcohol or we're driven towards jumping into the river, there's a level of dependency we have on certain things around us. We're humans. We get attached to things. It's what we do, right? If we can learn to become attached to things that are life sustaining rather than life taking, it's a game changer. It's a shift of that energy into a positive direction.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt.
Cool, man. Should we get into one more?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Anything that you want to add into this at this point before we carry on?
Let's keep going.
All right, cool.
Going.
Okay, let's pick a good one here. All right. You're training your nervous system every day, whether you mean to or not. Your patterns become your chemistry. What's one small daily repetition that can train the nervous system towards living a positive life instead of one that's destructive?
So we just talked about hydration a little bit, so I'll just go directly to that. I think it's the biggest thing that I've done for my morning routine is I wake up and I drink water with a pinch of table salt.
Okay.
Just a little bit, And the difference in how I feel 30 minutes after waking up has never been different, or never been more different. It is so impactful what hydration can do for you in the morning when you're waking up from that sleep, when you're placing yourself back into the world. To get your mind, the faster you can get your mind moving, the more you're able to do throughout your day, the more you're able to achieve and accomplish, the more you can really do the things that you want to do. So that's one quick and easy one that I can give you.
And it's very simple too.
It's super simple. I like to tell people that with the biological system coaching, it's not that I'm telling them these super hard to accomplish, super niche things, A lot of times these are the fixes that people would be too embarrassed to even realize are problems. Like, man, I could feel different if I just drink a little bit of water in the morning. I could feel different if I stop eating junk at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'll feel better at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Really? Getting them to think about the right things. It's really, really simple. We're simple creatures. It doesn't take a lot to understand. But the more you complicate things, the worse our body works.
And that goes with discipline as well. The more we try and build this, go from 0 to 100 and build this rigid structure for ourselves that we're not going to hold to, it won't sustain us over time. Versus if we can find the simple fixes that'll take us 1% in a different direction. Let's say, like if you are leaving on an airplane from, say, LA, and you shift the trajectory of the flight path just by one degree, that's the difference between arriving in Boston versus New York City. And that's the way I like to think about it. The 1% shift every single day, really implementing that and staying consistent with that. And you can make different and bigger shifts over time, but the more you can focus on that small shift, the longer it'll take you into just a different path entirely. Shit, man. Keyboard keeps falling.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's an easy way to put it. It's very simple. I like it.
Let's get into some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
You can answer in like a minute or less.
All right.
I'll just start throwing them at you.
Let's see.
All right. If someone quietly observed your life for a week, what would they actually learn about you?
That I'm unbelievably intentional about everything I do, but that it opens me up to a life of freedom.
Love it, man. Who sees you most clearly in your life?
Myself, if that's a decent answer.
Tell me more.
It took a long time for me to understand who I am, why I feel the way I do, why I want to do the things I do. For a while, I wasn't the main character in my own story. I thought my role was just to be there and kind of go along with the flow. And when I realized that that's not my purpose, my purpose at this point is just figuring out my purpose. We're all just trying to be the people that we want to be, and I don't know the person I want to be. So if I can figure out one little thing, learn one thing about myself every day or every week, that's all that I really care about.
For anyone listening, it's about becoming, the art of becoming, right? Make your purpose, finding your purpose. I love that, man.
That's awesome.
Okay. What is a choice that you've made that no one else understood, but you didn't need them to?
It's a great question. I think the one that comes to mind with this one, I love to spend time alone with nothing. Over winter break, I decided to stay in Boulder. All the students go home.
Oh yeah.
I had just graduated from college, and I wanted a week or two to sit with myself with no distractions and really reflect on the process I had just gone through, the 3.5 years of college, where I was when I started versus where I was when I ended. It's a drastic difference. And to be able to appreciate the growth and the struggle, and to be able to pretty much see where it's pushing you, to find my calling a little bit. When you're entering the real world, I don't want my first step to be one that I'll want to take back. I wanted to take some time and really understand where I'm going and find my calling and then just go at it. I didn't want to take this first step lightly.
And it's interesting that you graduated in winter. I feel like winter in general nature reflects this. It's the time where everything goes underground a little bit. Right? You're kind of going inward. You're going into hibernation, and you're planning for what will be births again in the spring and the summer. So for you to take this time, right, to go underground, this place of transition, you'll be setting yourself up better for when that time of rebirth and growth reemerges.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because it's also, it's New Year's. People love their New Year's resolutions, and I've always been somebody that I don't care about New Year's. If you want to start something, start it today, start it tomorrow, start it yesterday. I wrote a piece on my Substack called the 2025 Audit, where I really just went through my year, and it was the best year of my life, 2025. And I looked at how I grew, how I fell, how I came back from those failures. And something that I came back to during that piece is that biology doesn't respect January 1st as a fresh start. It's just another day. But ending this chapter of my life in December, going into the new year, it forced me to look at it as a new start, which was really, really interesting to me. It was the first time in my life where I'd ever thought of January 1st or the time around it as, this is where I start and this is some time for some new goals. But it just kind of overlapped, which was really interesting.
Yeah. One thing I appreciate about Judaism is obviously we have Rosh Hashanah, which is technically the new year, but there's this concept that in every moment, God is creating the world anew. Creation is something that is constantly happening in every second. If God wasn't actively creating the world wouldn't be. And that goes for every moment that it exists. And so with that energy, all that there is this moment of creation. And if we choose to tap into it, then we are one with the creator. And therefore, every moment is a new start. Every moment is an opportunity for the birth of new ideas, a new self, this idea of self that, we are this person that we thought we were over the past 20, 21, 22, 23 years is an illusion, because in this state of, in this paradigm, at least, the new year is always happening.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a really, really awesome way to look at it. Think about it.
Yeah. And it also brings a lot of gratitude. Just realizing that we're never stuck.
Mm-hmm.
We're always given another moment. And in every moment we can redefine who we are in a new way. So,
yeah.
Okay. Next question for you. What is a pattern that you're actively trying not to repeat?
Something that I'm working really hard on right now is social media. I've done a good job of getting off of it. I don't have Snapchat. I don't have TikTok. But getting off of X, it's my news source. It's hard when I love college football. I love college basketball. And with the season going on, the transfer portal, it's easy to kind of get in the groove of swiping, passively, non-passively. but it's something I'm ready to get rid of, so that's an easy one. Yeah.
Awesome. And then let's pick another good one for you. What do you see as being the difference between being liked and being known?
It's really easy to fit in. It's easy to kind of mold yourself to your environment where at that point you're not the main character of your own story, but nobody has a reason to dislike. You go along with the flow. You're with the waves. To be liked it's not the goal, right? When I grew up, I thought being liked was the goal. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, a big city, but I grew up in a really small community within it where, I only had 80 people in my graduating class. And I thought the whole time the point was, to be with everybody. And if they didn't see me for who I was, then maybe I can mold myself to be somebody who they wanted to be around, because that gave me community. When I got to the University of Colorado and all of a sudden you're at a place with 30,000 students and my single fraternity has more guys than my high school graduating class had. And it gave me a chance to be myself. I didn't fit into the standard stereotypical Boulder vibe, and I got to be myself. And when I realized, man, some people, they don't want to be around me, that's okay. Or they don't want to be around me as much, but some people do. And they know who I am. And that was so important to me, is understanding that to be known, that's the goal. Growing up, it's really easy to think that being liked and having that community is the same thing. But to be known within a community, that's something totally different, so much more powerful.
And you're making yourself known by the work that you're putting out. It's very much you. Right? It's a very vulnerable thing to do, but you're taking like the essence of who Bradley is, and you're letting it be revealed, fitting no one else's mold.
Right. There's someone out there, and if there's no one out there within your community, there's someone within another one. And you are, who you surround yourself with becomes part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if the people that you surround yourself with don't know who you are, how will you ever know who you are? How will they help you grow into you? It's all about becoming you with me. So
one final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to meet and confront your younger self right now, the Bradley that was about to undergo the transformation you went through between high school and college in this state of becoming, what would your message be to him or others like him?
First of all, I wouldn't trade a single thing that happened to me if it would change anything about where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
That's so important to me, is that I went through it and I got to experience it because I learned through those experiences, through the failures. It was the data that I needed. But if I could tell, say, 19-year-old Bradley one thing, senior in high school, about to come to college, I'd just tell him to do it. Jump into the deep end and figure it out. It's something I learned fairly quickly. I probably could have learned it quicker, that it's okay to fail and it's okay to take chances, that you don't know what the outcome's going to be. But if you stay true to yourself, the world will stay true to you, in a sense. If I could tell middle school Bradley something before going to high school, it would be the same thing. If you stay true to yourself, the world will stay true to you. So,
dude, I love it. And I appreciate you coming into the studio, getting to have this conversation. I had a moment just now where I just pictured us talking about this conversation a few years down the line, when everything that you're doing and I'm doing is just evolved in so many new and beautiful ways. And so this is a moment captured in time as you and I both step into this new world that we're building. And it's going to be beautiful. And I'm excited to just, have come together from this launch pad that we're both starting off at, and see where it goes from here.
It's awesome, man. Just two people working on themselves.
Yep. And helping other people work on
Exactly.
themselves. And that's the mission.
Hmm.
I want to give you a chance to just let people know where they can find you, your website, or where they can read your weekly posts.
Yeah, so I have a website. It's called bannrsystems.com, BANNR systems.com. There's no E in Banner. Even though it's part of my last name, I just decided to take it out because it's not about me.
Mm.
And then my Substack is linked on that website, or you can just find me by looking up Bradley Bannr on Substack. The username's Bannr Systems. Same thing.
All right, man. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to this conversation. I hope something in this conversation shifted something in you. Again, even 1 degree, 1%, that's worth everything. So if you enjoyed it, share it with someone who can benefit from it. I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Yehuda.